but happy to be here today with you guys. As you mentioned, my name is Jarret Stowe. I'm the director of broker product for DAT. I came over as part of the Trucker Tools acquisition, so Trucker Tools is now part of the DAT family. Together, we're combining forces to fight fraud and increase visibility into the supply chain. Thank you all for being here. Fraud is a massive problem for our industry, and we all play a key part in solving it. Oh, sorry, got to push the slide. There's me. Cool. So during COVID, fraud really became a major issue, right? It's always been around, but it just continued to increase, caused by an increase in freight demand, caused by capacity tightening. Supply chain made national headlines, and more money was moving through the system. This made freight a target. As freight became a target, so did the platforms that enable the transaction of freight. You can think of DAT, for anyone who doesn't know, it's the largest Loadboard, as the biggest bank in the town, right? When you're a robber, you're going to a town, you want to rob someone, you're not going to rob the small guy, you're going to try to rob the biggest bank in town. That's DAT. But just like a bank doesn't leave their front door open, DAT doesn't leave its front door open for fraudsters to come in. DAT has invested heavily in security and technology, in people, in processes to help prevent fraud on the platform. This helps us spot threats early, stop fraud quicker, and ultimately resolve those issues. It really comes down to 4 key philosophies that DAT has here. Maintain an open marketplace where users can choose who they work with, reduce friction by implementing smarter technologies, educate our customers so that they can identify and stop fraud faster, and provide human support when it matters most. Backing this philosophy is Roper Technologies, a diversified technology company with the resources and long-term commitment to help reduce fraud risk in the industry. DAT's also brought on an amazing leadership team with Jeff Clements, Brian Gill, Terry Jablonski from Trucker Tools to really focus on fraud and bring that to the forefront of what DAT is doing every day. So really, how are we fighting fraud? There's really 3 pieces that I want to focus on. The first is policy. The best example, only licensed bonded brokers can post freight. Dispatch services, motor carriers cannot post loads on the platform. This just kind of brings a level of fraud protection at the beginning. The second is people. 100% of customer complaints are investigated by our network integrity unit. They work very closely with our security team, law enforcement, as well as the customers on a daily basis to identify these complaints, identify potential fraud, and take action if it's necessary. We also work proactively with our customers, going on site with them, providing training materials to help them understand what are the new vectors that we're seeing out there across our platform. What can they be doing? What technologies can they be implementing to help reduce their risk? And finally, is that technology piece. DAT's invested heavily in user verification, biometric, AI and machine learning detection for potential fraud, as well as having 24/7 security monitoring and industry standard security certifications to help protect our customers. Ultimately, this has led to a 30% reduction in potential fraudulent accounts trying to create an account with DAT. Right, so we talk about how we're trying to detect fraud, prevent fraud. We're also building product innovations, right, to help shippers, brokers, carriers interact more effectively, more efficiently, while keeping that lens on fraud. I really like to think of our product innovations and fraud detection as broken down into 2 layers. We have the pre-booking piece, right? Those are your onboarding providers. Those are various like carrier storing providers out there. And then we have post-booking, right? This is one thing that I don't think we think as much about recently and something that I really want to highlight. Everyone loves to stop a fraudster before they book a load, but after that load's booked, there's still a chance they slip through that onboarding provider. How do you go about catching them? Trucker Tools, I want to highlight here, plays a huge part in this piece. Founded in 2013. Location tracking was kind of the original fraud identifier, right? Or one of those. Knowing where that truck was, knowing they're going to be there, knowing they're going to pick up that load and where they are. Trucker Tools was, like I said, started in 2013 as a mobile app for tracking. Now there's over 300,000 carriers in the network, 2.5 million app downloads. allows us to track a ton of drivers. This is still a key vital tool that carriers use for tracking on a regular basis. And not only do they use it for tracking, it also provides free tools for life on the road. One of the biggest things you'll hear about other tracking products, they delete it as soon as they drop off the load. They don't want a tracking app on their phone. By giving them free tools such as axle weight calculators, fuel optimizers, etc., it keeps them engaged in the tool, keeps it on their phone, allows us to gather more data and more readily track those carriers. With the ELD mandate in 2017, we saw a big push for ELDs, right, in the industry. I think carriers are sort of weary to start with. I think now, kind of after COVID, after all the fraud really started, there was a major push for ELDs, and I think tracking became table stakes, right? Every shipper requires tracking and has high tracking standards at this point. You're seeing that more commonly accepted by carriers, and because of that, you're seeing a massive adoption of ELD tracking. With that, Trucker Tools has built a strong ELD network. Since this slide was submitted, we actually have over 270 integrations, and that's growing every week. Many of those are one-click integrations where you can get integrated in as little as about 90 seconds. On track to have around 60,000. That number keeps growing as well. Carrier integrations by the end of the year. And I think it's really interesting. If you've ever heard Carrie talk, you'll hear her talk about visibility 3.0. It's not really just location pins on a map anymore. One of the big things that we're hearing from shipper requirements is that they're actually requiring, for example, real-time temperature tracking. So being able to say major grocery store chains, produce companies, CPG companies are starting to say, hey, we need real-time temperature. Historically, that's been collected via check calls. So not only focus on in-cab ELD connections, we're also focused on those trailer telematics integrations, which are key for that temperature tracking piece connected to the reefer unit, as well as if you're doing like drop and hook loads, you can monitor that trailer, not just the power unit. But, right, ELD, that is the simplest way to do it. There's no interaction required from the driver. There's no settings on their phone they have to set up. But we work in the spot market, right? And in the spot market, sometimes you had a carrier fall off and you need a carrier now to pick up a load. You're already running late. What can you do to help add fraud protection when you're tracking via a mobile app solution? So like I mentioned, location pins on the map were the first piece of fraud detection. Trucker Tools also kind of looked forward and started off with their geotag document scanning as one of the first in the industry to do so. With that, you know that the scan was taken in real time in the app, not off your camera roll, not texted to you by someone else. It is always geotagged with the location and timestamp. We also confirm the metadata on that photograph. So that helps you know that POD was taken in real time on the spot. That was kind of the beginning of it, right? And then about a year ago, we had customers start reaching out to us and they were telling us, hey, loads are tracking, but they're being stolen. What's going on? Right? So we immediately dove into those loads and built out our original fraud toolkit. A couple things that I want to highlight here: international IP identification. I feel like I need a laser pointer. IP masking and VoIP phone number identification. Every load that was reported to us at that time had at least 2 of those 3 fraud alerts on it. So those would have caught every one of those loads that was reported to us. Since then, we've also expanded that to include device spoofing, compromised device alerts, and overbooked carrier alerts. We have more alerts coming on the way. If you don't listen to anything else I tell you today, I would say whoever you're using for your visibility provider, whether that be Trucker Tools or someone else, make sure you're utilizing these fraud alerts. As I was boarding the plane to Dallas last night, I got a call from a top 100 broker and they said, hey, carriers are getting through our onboarding provider. We're still having loads stolen. What can you guys do to help? And the first thing I asked him was, have you guys operationalized these alerts? And he told me no. I immediately go in, pull the data. We had alerted 190 loads since the 1st of May to them that had multiple alerts on them that they could have caught. We've caught carriers that are railing loads, carriers that are double brokering, stealing loads, etc. As these fraudsters continue to evolve, we must evolve with them. So you'll see this list continue to grow. But so far, it's dramatically helped our customers catch many of these attempts. And right, I would be remiss without telling you some of the numbers. So since launching the fraud toolkit, we've blocked over 400,000 location updates attempted from outside of North America. We alert around 700 brokers a month with these fraudulent alerts. And then we identify over 5,000 driver VoIP phone numbers per month. These are non-fixed VoIP phone numbers. They're easy to buy. carriers that are profitable typically buy these and never use them again, right? So it's really important to be able to identify these quickly as soon as the driver is assigned to a load. So, right, that's post-booking. Now I want to talk about pre-booking. Since joining DAT in December, I was tasked with focusing on really two things. How do we increase efficiency for our customers, and how do we reduce fraud exposure? So I'm really excited to announce that DAT is working on the carrier management suite. This will allow you to vet, source, book, capacity, all within the DAT platform, filtering and tailoring your carrier audience to your compliance criteria, right? Whether that be based on FMCSA data, carrier behavior, et cetera, right? Actually bringing in some of that trucker tools data, knowing where they usually run. If you have a carrier running in the Southeast all the time, it's a major red flag if they want to pick up a load in Seattle. So bring some visibility there for you. There are already some of these features out in the marketplace today in beta, our carrier company profile, some filters on truck search. So if you're a DAT subscriber, go check them out, have your team start using them. And more to come. We're going to be rolling out a much broader beta set of features later this year. And right, this improves efficiency for our broker customers, but this also improves efficiency for our carrier customers, allowing them to tailor who they're reaching out to. They don't want to reach out to 10 brokers and just hear that they can't work with them because they don't have the right authority. They have a conditional safety rating, whatever that may be. They want to know ahead of time, right? Hey, I'm going to have this tough conversation. And I'm going to need to have my plan, how I'm going to fix my safety rating. How am I going to get to satisfactory from conditional? Or I just avoid those brokers and find the ones that I know I can work with, right? Reduce that. I talk to customers all the time. I hear like 15 to 40% of inbound calls that you get are from carriers that you can't work with. I'm sure some people out here can feel that. So trying to help reduce that inbound email and call volume that you're getting. Thank you, everyone. Really excited to be here. Thank you all for taking the time and coming out. It's a major problem in our industry and excited to work with you all.